Hello, this is your principal, Valerie Newton, with this week's edition of Hear Me Roar, Academics. Let's start with some feedback from our DOE instructional review. During our discussion, we discussed the positive things we were seeing, items that need to improve, and definite next steps. Here are the positive things. Number one, students were well behaved. Number two, there were positive interactions between the students and teachers and between the students themselves. Three, most classes were set up so that students could work collaboratively, and many teachers had students actually working together. Number four, all classrooms had important information posted, the standard, objective, agenda. Number five, students were engaged in the learning and there were some checks for understanding. The main item that needed improvement was standard, objective, and task alignment. For our next steps, our Q1 professional development, get in line. Our Greco assigned mentors, Mrs. Rubley and Mr. Morin, will conduct a rolling in-service on Tuesday, October 9th on standard, objective, task alignment. The session will be differentiated to meet the needs of each teacher. A pre-assessment activity will determine where you are in the process, and the remainder of the session will be tailored to those results. SALs and coaches will continue to conduct PLCs related to standard-based lesson planning. Teachers will continue to receive support based on the teacher tier system we've been using. Continuing with our conversation from Visible Learning for Literacy, I stated I would share the connection between Domain 1, which is lesson planning, and Domain 3, lesson execution, and how it relates to last week's topic of teacher clarity. So let's look at Domain 1. On the chart in Domain 1, you see 1A, knowledge of content, covers the what and why in teacher clarity. The look-fors there are daily learning targets that are aligned to the standard. 1B covers the why. The look-fors there are different text, task, outcomes, strategic groupings of students. You know if your students are ESE, if they're ELL, if they're in the bottom quartile, and what types of accommodations they need. 1C, instructional outcomes, again, the what part of teacher clarity. The learning target is aligned to grade level standards. Pebble sized using academic vocabulary, and you're using the DOK level of standard is included. 1E, designing coherent instruction, is where your actual task comes in. It puts it all together. The look-fors are learning experiences that are aligned to the learning target. And then finally, 1F, designing assessment, is the how in teacher clarity. The look-fors is you have a means to determine mastery along the way, and students know how to monitor that mastery. Let's look at Domain 3. 3A, communicating with students, is our what and why in clarity. Your learning target is understood by students. Students can say what they are learning and why it is important. 3C, engaging students in learning, is the task part of your teacher clarity, and the task again are standards aligned. Align is a word that I keep using. Students are developing understanding as they act and think, not rote responses. And then 3D, using assessment and learning, goes back to your how and teacher clarity. Your look-fors there are the teacher looks and listens to students while they work, tracks progress, and acts accordingly. Students can state with success what success looks like. Students know what success looks like. As you can see, good lesson planning is essential for good lesson execution. Behavior. 2 teachers responded with suggestions to reduce tardiness. First, we have Mrs. Keller. Mrs. Keller installed a charging station in the back of her room. The first 10 students get to charge their phones. This worked well with her 8th period class, where she was having the most problems with tardiness. She also wanted her students to know that she knew where they were coming from, so she used EdConnect to look up student schedules so she could have conversations with students about where they were coming from and how long it should take to get to her class. This knowledge helped her reduce tardiness in her class. Great use of knowledge of students, Ms. Keller. Mr. Davey awards Cub Bucks for starting bell work on time. Students that are late cannot get Cub Bucks. Thanks, Mr. Davey, for using our school-wide positive behavior plan to encourage the desired behavior. For next week, let's talk cell phones. How do you keep cell phones from being a distraction to the learning environment in your class? If you have an idea but don't want me to share your name, just let me know and you can remain anonymous. Greco teachers roar with pride. Here's a great example of how you can roar, and it came from Mrs. Blake's email. She stated, "The most significant tool available to teachers is conducting him or herself in the manner in which the students are expected to behave. Teachers who maintain self-control, respect for others, good manners, courtesy, honesty, fairness, and good judgment teach by example." What's coming up? Homecoming 2018 Level Up is in full swing. Students love to see teachers participate in spirit days and show up at events. Remember, comp time is given for attending games and chaperoning the dance. Today, Greco will host the Temple Terrace Police Department's National Night Out. Remember to review Greco internal, calendar, and emails for a complete listing of upcoming events. That's all for this episode. Have a great week, and remember, we are roaring together with excellence.